Well, now that Joel Embiid has his gold, where do we focus next? Outside of just representing the country in general and rooting for Team USA, you kind of want to have some personal, of course, feeling about it outside of the representing the country in general. And that is maybe with another Philadelphia 76er, possibly, maybe, just maybe being in the mix for Team USA. And before you say, well, Devon, he hasn't been in the pipeline and all that. Well, that's not true, because as a player in high school and going into college, he has been in the pipeline of Team USA. He just wasn't on the select team, and we all questioned that from the very beginning. But things have changed for Tyrese Maxey. He is certainly one of the best guards in the NBA. Should he be a part of the conversation? Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast with Derek Bodner, Kyle Neubeck. I'm Devon Givens. Brianna is here. Yes, I see Gene in there saying, "Goat, is that you on the ones and twos?" That is Brianna in there on the ones and twos, making sure we're all good.
I also see Winona saying, "Me and Mama tuned in." Hello
hey,
to
Mom.
Winona.
How
Hey
you
to
doing
Mom.
in there? What's going on? My mom's probably in there too. So, Mom, I'm just saying, hey, Mom, to Winona's mom, just to say what's up. But welcome to the show. We appreciate everybody joining us, of course, on a Tuesday. We have a lot to get into from Quincy Pondexter. We didn't talk about him yesterday. We'll touch on what? Why are we talking about Quincy Pondexter? Do you even remember
Hang his
Quincy
jersey
Pondexter?
next to Mike Muscala's in the rafters.
Well, there's that.
Now just the center.
Now they're just a wing of guys like that with their importance that did nothing in the Sixers uniform for that, but impacted some decision-making. We'll talk about him a little bit later. Maybe some schedule stuff that's starting to leak out. That's on the horizon, and quite possibly a former coach that we might have to talk about who has to have his hands over everything, whether it's the Sixers, his team, the Clippers, the NBA, basketball in general. We'll talk about that guy a little bit later. But we kind of talked about it briefly at the end of the show yesterday, asking about what does the team look like in 2028 for Team USA as Los Angeles hosts the Olympics? We start running off the players that are part of the team now, the younger players that could still be there, and maybe some of the others that are a little bit older, the elder statesmen that could sneak in there in that 4 years from now and be the guy on the very back end of it, getting another gold medal, maybe Kevin Durant, maybe Anthony Davis. But we also talked about the guards just briefly and what that might look like. And as we figured, we discussed it at the end, Derek, Kyle, and I, and Brianna, we figured, well, you know what? Where does Tyrese Maxey fit in this conversation? Should have been on the select team, was not on the select team. Neither was Derek White. But he happened to find himself on this particular team and winning a goal in 2024, Derek. And because of that, just because you weren't on the select team or in the pipeline the last few years doesn't mean you are not on the radar for Grant Hill and the select committee and how they put this team together. He has elevated himself so much that he probably should be in the conversation. What does he have to do? Should he be in the mix? Who does he have to fight for to get there?
I mean, I think the easiest answer to that is he's just got to keep doing what he's been doing the last 2 years, and he will be on their radar and probably quite deserving of being on that team. I don't think he necessarily needs to make a massive jump to earn a spot on that squad. I think it's, as a Sixers fan, you are hoping he makes another jump, in part because he has made a jump every year of his career. So I think we sort of expect it, maybe not the massive one he has made over the last 2 summers, but certainly incremental improvement. But even if he just maintains his level for another 3 years, I think he's going to be in strong consideration, in part because a lot of the guards are aging out of sort of being in their prime. And a lot of the players, like if you just search for players who are 30 and younger, a lot of the top guards, you know, obviously Shea and Luka, but they're not Americans. Like I suppose they could go the Joel Embiid route and get citizenship, but I don't think that's going to happen. And then you look at the rest and it's like Devin Booker, Tyrese Halliburton, Derek White, players who are already on the squad. So I think outside of Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey is probably the number one name you would bring up as sort of like the heir apparent. So I think he's got to mostly just continue to have a strong career, continue to play the way he's been playing, continue to stay healthy. And if he does all of that, I think it would be tough to keep him off of that next squad.
Yeah, and to your point, Derek, about just maintaining his current level, the hardest place to get to is where Tyrese is at, right? Yes. To garner enough respect and attention to be in that all-star, Olympic, all-NBA type conversation. Typically, once you get there, it's just a snowball rolling downhill, right? If you're able to maintain a similar level of production, unless somebody that's coming up from like one of the younger guys, the next generation, and you can't even say next generation yet because he's only 23. But unless somebody's coming in as a rookie, second-year guy who's absolutely blowing everybody out of the water, production-wise, winning-wise, Maxey's probably in the years to come going to get some continued recognition, even if he plateaus a little bit. And I don't think any of us are sitting here expecting Tyrese Maxey to plateau based on what we've seen from him over the first 4 years, what we know about him as a worker.
I mean, he's probably had 3 workouts already this morning.
Right. So, and you brought up some of the names, Derek, of the entrenched guys. A bunch of the guards on the team, I would say, are either straight up not going to play or are ultra unlikely to play. Like Drew Holiday, probably out of the pool. Derek White will be borderline, but my guess is he would be out of the pool. I think he'll be 34, 35, something like that. My guess is if they want that type of defensive utility guard, they would look elsewhere. And so if you take Steph Curry, Derek White, Drew Holiday all out of there, then you're looking at a group that's, Jalen Brunson is in there. You have to look further down the list at guys like De'Aaron Fox. We know Cade Cunningham has been very involved in Team USA. If he ever makes the team success leap that people are expecting from him, like if they ever put a decent team around him in Detroit, maybe he's the one who gets the nod. Jalen Suggs was a good shout yesterday as well. Those guys are not necessarily who I view, at least Suggs is not who I view Tyrese as competing with, because that's a different sort of player, a different sort of mold. Tyrese would be coming in that Steph Curry type of role where you're bringing gravity, your ability to succeed on and off the ball is very useful on a team that more than likely will have a bunch of guys who are on-ball heavy threats. And I think the wing pool is interesting in a few years because unlike now, I don't think they have a lot of guys in the future who are like, those guys are knockdown shooters. It's a lot more slasher types like the Jaylen Browns, like the Jason Tatums of the world, Paolo Banchero and others. He's more of a true forward, but again, a guy who's more mid-post, bang inside, that type of player. And so a guy with great shooting gravity, the way Maxey has, might have even more value on the future team. You do have Anthony Edwards as well. He'll be one of the, we assume, featured players on this team in 2028. But I think he's positioned nicely because if you compare him, for example, to De'Aaron Fox, I think De'Aaron Fox is a very good player. I think in the right Team USA group, guy who has that type of speed, can get out and transition, can hit shooters, would make a lot of sense and bring a lot of value to the team. I don't necessarily trust his shot. I know he's improved on it a lot, but it's not at the level that Tyrese's is at, certainly not at the level that Jalen Brunson's is at. So that might be the separating factor. It really, I think it doesn't come down necessarily to how good is Tyrese Maxey. It's what does the rest of that group look like and how does he fit into that? Because I mean, I think right now he has a skill set and the production to say, I deserve to be in that mix. You put 4 more years of physical maturation, skill development, and just frankly, as we were saying, brand recognition, for lack of a better phrase, he will absolutely be in the mix.
Yeah, and you mentioned, if his core competition are Jalen Brunson and De'Aaron Fox, he just fits on a wider range of whoever he's complimenting. Like, let's say you want to compliment, I don't want to say Jason Tatum because he barely played here, but someone of that archetype. Maybe Anthony Edwards, you're looking for maybe you're going to run a lot of your offense through there. Tyrese Maxey can play on-off ball in a way that Jalen Brunson, not that he can't, it's just not his natural role. He doesn't get as many reps doing it. And whereas Tyrese Maxey is going to spend the next 3 to 4 years playing in a multitude of roles. And I think that will help him when it comes time for a selection as well.
Especially when you talk about the names, when you talk about the knockdown shooter, the only one that really stands out, of course, is Devin Booker. If he's back on the team in 28, Devin Booker is the one that really is a knockdown shooter as a guard or wing, however you want to describe him, because he can do a multitude of things in the Olympic style of play. And then the other part, too, is Steve Kerr is now done. It's now going to be Eric Spoelstra, maybe, or another coach. Presumably going to be Eric Spoelstra. He's been on that bench for a long time. Maybe they hand the reins to him. And does he try to do something a little bit different than what we've seen from Popovich to Kerr? And now that he gets an opportunity, does he see something different there for the type of guard that he may want? But when you look at Booker, Edwards, and Halliburton possibly returning from this particular group, it's wide open. I mean, you have a few guards from Halliburton did not play, and then you have a bunch of other wings that we're looking at. They really have a lot of guards on this basketball. Well, Drew Holiday and Derek White, you include those two, but as Kyle pointed out, you're probably going to be moving on from both of them.
I think Drew for sure. Derek White is, I'd say, borderline.
But the only thing with him is, as much as he has turned himself into who he is right now at the age of 31, when we get to 28, he's probably capped out of who he is at his peak.
I would say they would look, and that's why a guy like Suggs maybe comes in for me, because he's a version of that type of player that can defend point of attack, is a versatile guy you can switch across some matchups. Yeah. Hopefully by that point is a reliable enough shooter that you can't leave him alone. But he's like the dirty work kind of utility guard that Derek White is. And so that's why I think that's more of a Jalen Suggs type of guy, or maybe someone we're just not thinking of right now. And again, one who plays that role.
And again, while he's one of those guys that have been on these USA teams in the past, Suggs have. So again, in that pipeline that is already in the mix, there with that stuff. That stuff means something for some, maybe not for others. Maxey also in the same with Jalen Suggs, not yet on the NBA level as far as being a part of the team. But looking at where they are right now and the names that you bring up and some of the other names like John Morant and Trae Young, those are just names. We mentioned John Morant yesterday. We talked about why he wouldn't be, because it's about representing the country and maybe doesn't fit personality-wise with what they want. Guess who would fit personality-wise with what they want? That's Tyrese Maxey.
He fits with anybody personality-wise. We do have breaking schedule news, by the way. We might want to wait until after this segment. We'll get into NBA Cup play.
And we've been waiting for it.
The Sixers schedule has been released, so we'll discuss that in a few minutes.
But he fits, though, like Derek was saying, being that guy who doesn't have to have the ball in his hand, still being effective, running off those screens like Booker and like some of the others. Even when you talk about Cunningham is an on-the-ball, bigger guard, but he doesn't do what we saw from Curry and what presumably you could see some of what Maxey could bring to that particular team should he make that squad in 2028. That's why. So overall, the player, we know he fits with being good enough to be in the conversation for what they're doing. That's why it was so puzzling that he just wasn't in the pool of the big list that they had of that pool, that Maxey just was not on that list where so many others were. And that's fine, because there's another opportunity for him at this young age for him to be, 27, 28 by that time we get there in 2028, where he'll be in his prime, dead smack in the middle of his prime of who he is. And if he keeps going, getting that 1% better like he always talks about, he's still going to be one of the best guards in the NBA, and it's going to be very difficult for them to ignore it. I don't know if there's a FIBA schedule at all in 26 that we have to pay attention to see if there's something there for an earlier look at some players playing on that particular team. I have to look that up.
By the way, I actually don't know this off the top of my head. I know they used to do, it was the 2-year interval, right? It was the Olympics, and then it used to be 26, and then the Olympics 28.
But
I think
last
because
year,
I don't know if they're now on a new rotation where it's going to be the year before the Olympics.
Right.
And as we saw when your cousin played in FIBA, and look at that like overall roster of who was on it, I wonder if there's an opportunity, if Tyrese, for example, were to say, I'm willing to go in 27, that would probably give him an edge for 28 to come and show up and be like, I want to be one of the guys on that team at the World Cup.
I saw a quote where Anthony Edwards was already asking about that because he did it last year.
And he said, hell no, I'm not playing.
This year. He said, hell no. So that's a spot that opens up for him to be there and maybe playing that role that you're talking about on that team, if they do so in 26 or 27 before the 28 Olympics in Los Angeles, where he'll have an opportunity to do so. And I don't know how much agent play goes into this type of stuff.
Or like the sneaker deals. And all that. I already have seen some references to Nike in the chat, which I know because of Jalen Brown, there's been a lot of chatter about that. But
Tyrese was also a Nike guy before the
Joel's
New
a
Balance
Skechers
stuff.
guy, and he's on the team. So as long as you're good enough, I think generally you.
And again, he was a Nike guy before New Balance, so he's fine. Kawhi is Kawhi. He's a legend. He's an NBA Hall of Famer. He's a New Balance guy, so his is a little bit different. But the sneaker part for Maxey, I doubt that will come into play just simply because of the person that he is, and Grant Hill already knowing how good this guy is and how great of a person he is.
It is wild that the Sixers probably have the most divisive star in the NBA right now in Joel Embiid and the least divisive, most impossible to not like star in Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, yes. He's certainly not the most popular player, but I think he's, if not the most liked.
He's an all-star without a single enemy.
Highest percentage of people who like him.
You said without a single enemy?
Yeah, without a single
right.
enemy. It's wild.
Even the New York fans, when he was just torching them, they wanted
begrudging
to hate him,
respect,
but they could not do it. And what did Tracy Morgan say when he was sitting there? He gave him the double bird. Sorry, I didn't put it up, Mom. I didn't put the fingers up, Mom. Went on his mom.
We're trying.
We're good. But he gave him the double bird after he hit that shot and ran down the sideline.
Tracy Morgan was not feeling
not
it.
happy. Ben Stiller gave him the look like, are you serious, dude? You had to come into our building and do so because the guy is just impossible to not like. You have to like him, and we'll see where he might fit in. Well, part of that is what does he do? What does he do during the regular season? And maybe,
what does he do during the NBA Cup?
And maybe the NBA
building
Cup.
His legacy.
Should he run that tournament and get them the cup? Celebrate a little bit. Grant Hill's doing the game. He's calling the game for Turner. He can't help but say, you know what? We got to put him on the list. Well, we'll talk about that because Kyle said we have breaking news about that. We'll get into the schedule for the cup on the other side here on PHLY Sixers Podcast.
And guys, we always say around here, the future is bright.
Oh,
got to put the shades on for Tyrese Maxey and our friends at Shady Rays. Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades that are built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Hundreds of options, so you will find the perfect pair to match your style. This is a product that's been rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. That's a lot of 5-star ratings, guys, and for good reason. Durable frames, crystal clear optics, they're the perfect choice for outdoor adventures, or if you're going to wear sunglasses in front of the bright lights of a podcast studio set next to your colleagues. They are good anywhere. I've worn them. You wouldn't know it looking at me. I'm still relatively pale. I've been wearing a lot of SPF 50 this summer, but a lot of time spent on the beach, and these Shady Rays have taken care of my eyes the whole time. And guess what? If you're at the beach, if you're on a trip, wherever you might be, if those shades ever go missing or they take an unexpected hit, you don't have to worry about it because they have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair backed by lost or broken replacements, and you can exchange or return them worry-free within 30 days. No risk shopping with Shady Rays. So exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays giving out the best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHLY for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. And what makes a better combination than the beach, a nice pair of sunglasses, and an ice cold beer, specifically from our friends from Coors Light. With Coors Light, you know you're getting an ice cold beer even when you're at the beach. Even when it's hot all summer long, when you pull it out of the fridge, you pull it out of the cooler, you see those blue mountains on the bottles and cans. You know they're the perfect temperature for you to have a nice, chill, refreshing moment wherever you are. I know I told you guys earlier this summer about my adventures on my roof that I got rained on after putting down some new primer on top of my roof. Well, guess what, guys? This weekend, I think I'm making another trip up there to finish off the job. Finally, get some little things that need to be done. And when I'm done, I need to step back out of the summer heat and choose chill. I know I can turn to Coors Light for some mountain cold refreshment. So when you choose to rise above it all, choose chill, choose Coors Light, get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Before you get to the cup news, Martian Lynch is on a roll in the chat. CIA Neubeck. License and registration Neubeck.
Whoa!
Whoop, whoop. That's the sound of the beast, Neubeck.
I think a CIA agent would know to mute his laptop. So.
It was, but I dropped my
just
sunglasses.
Just looking like a CIA agent.
Do you know how fast you were going, Neubeck? Martian's on the roll.
I've gotten very few tickets in my life, thankfully.
Yeah, same. Same.
Only speeding tickets. That's the only one.
Yeah.
I've gotten
Never like
parking tickets.
Yeah, parking I don't
that
count
doesn't
because
count.
the PPA is a criminal organization.
Yeah.
So there.
That is true.
If you want to talk about people who
That
should be
is true.
arrested, it's the PPA.
Yes.
Throw every last one of them in the deepest cell in jail that you can.
I hated when I got a speeding ticket for going 10 miles
We're never
going to
be sponsored by the PPA, so I don't care about
They don't
slandering
sponsor
them.
anybody. They keep that money. I hate when I get pulled over for going 10 miles per hour and like a 25 into 35 or something. It's like, was I really going that fast? And you see all those people zooming by me, right? And you pull me over.
I feel like
But
normally
okay,
they give you like 11 miles an hour or so before. I have heard from my Miranda rights sources as
Yes.
people are. No, I think it's normally, but if you're like 8 to 12 miles over, normally you can skate with a warning or
Yes.
they'll just ignore you. So I'm surprised.
The cap was always, from my sources, to your point, is 15.
Yeah.
It's 15.
That
and-
once you're there, it's like, sorry, we
Yeah.
got to do it to you.
Yeah, it's bad. It's
Not too
bad.
long ago, I was driving home and there was like a row of like 5 cars all going like exactly a speed limit. And I'm in a rush, go right by him. The front car was a cop. Pulls me over and he's like, just rolls down his window. Do you think there's a bleeping reason they were all going slow? And then he speeds away. And that was the closest I've gotten to a speeding ticket in like the last
That was
5
the only
years
one?
or so. Yeah, I haven't gotten one in like 5 years.
Oh, okay.
I was very glad that he was apparently in a rush because I got away with it.
Yeah, because they were, of
There's
course,
a bleeping reason. that
worried about him. Come on, man. All right. We're friends of the,
Breaking
police.
news alert on the
friends
show.
of the
We
police,
have
though.
the Sixers NBA Cup schedule in front of us. I don't know that Devon and Derek have seen this
I
yet.
have not looked at it.
Derek, have you looked at it?
Yeah. I tweeted it out.
That's no fun. All
I stayed
right.
away from it.
Here is
Mr. Schedule.
the official group play schedule for your Philadelphia 76ers. Tuesday, November 12th, at home against the Knicks on TNT. Friday, November 15th, so 3 days later, at the Orlando Magic. 1 week later, Friday, November 22nd, home versus the Brooklyn Nets. Tuesday, December 3rd, to finish it off, at the Charlotte Hornets. And that is your
So
official group play schedule. So I think that
second
was...
block looks like 2 wins. Should be 2 wins.
Yeah.
The first 2 are where the questions will lie.
I would say they got New York at home, but as we found out, Knicks
Doesn't
fans
matter.
travel well, so I'm not sure how much that
Sell out
matters.
the buildings, center. Sell it out. Sell it out.
Yeah, I think Brooklyn and Charlotte didn't really matter where you play them. You probably would have preferred to just get Orlando at home and hope to win 3 out of the 4.
But we thought the same thing about Indiana until Indiana turned out to be the eventual Eastern Conference representative for the Cup when the Sixers played them in that pool play.
The tough part to evaluate is we don't know what the surrounding schedule is. I will say it's a little bit interesting. We know they opened the season against Milwaukee. We know that now Chris Haynes reported earlier today, November 6th, they play the LA Clippers in LA. So they're back home 6 days after that against the Knicks. What is that in between period look
And
like?
is that
Like,
the
is that
first
coming
game
off
back?
of
Yeah.
a long West Coast road trip or a long road trip in general?
Let's say it's 4. Let's say it's 4 games out there.
Yeah.
That's a normal significant
You got to
West
hope that
Coast
there's
trip.
a buffer game coming back.
And
you get your bearings.
And where are the
legs
Knicks?
under you.
Are the Knicks coming from
Yes.
home? Or where are they? That's an interesting one. And ideally, you would look at that just right now and say you would like to see them go 4-0 to make sure that they find themselves in that play to go to Las Vegas to play there. But one loss could hurt you in that specific type of tournament that the NBA has now put together. Did you all eventually like it at the end of it last year? I wasn't here with you guys.
I
so-
went from. I mean, I don't think it. Let's say it still doesn't have a ton of significance in terms of you're not adding to your legacy by winning the NBA Cup.
No,
right?
it's just more of what your thoughts were about the Cup and beforehand, seeing it and then seeing how it played out.
I think a lot of it was just goofy marketing hype. And look, that's basically what it is, right? They're just trying to generate some more interest and money in the regular season. But I do think as they got deeper into it, you could see the players cared about it that were still left in it or had a chance to go to Las Vegas and compete. We got some really good early regular season games out of it. And so for me, who I'm going to watch every regular season game regardless, if you can add just like a little bit of extra incentive, my only request is that they please don't do that bright red court for the Sixers again, because that was painful on my eyes and I didn't like it. But other than that, it's fine. The worst case scenario is you play one extra game in the season and you lose the championship.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say I was down on it, but I was dismissive of it last year. And I'm still like Kyle. I'm not gonna we're not throwing a parade for any in-season tournament winner. You're not going to. It's not going to impact your legacy. I do think it picked up the quality of play in November, and I don't want meaningful, not incredibly substantial, but like if it increases the competitive level 5 to 10%, then I'm all on board. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it, but I do think it is. I think it helped. Now, to Kyle's point, the courts, please don't. Just please don't. You tried it.
Awful.
Didn't work. Move on.
They're not going to move on.
They're not. I know.
They're going to draw as much attention as they can. That is the one thing I will complain about. But I do think it picked up the level of play more than I was expecting it to.
I was dismissive also, and was like, who asked for this? And Adam Silver asked for it. But so as it played out, though, and we got to watch it, and especially when some teams lost, like the Sixers lost, it started to give other teams hope and belief that they could actually move on to this cup. Then the money came into play where you feel like, hey, we're here, we're in the mix, we might as well play hard and get there, see what it's like. And the competition was pretty good with the Pacers, the Lakers, how all of that played out. The Pelicans, once they got there, they got blown out. But the Pelicans also, I can't remember who the Pacers played, but
and that was a truly low moment for Zion.
That was
by
bad.
The way, he was really absolutely bad. Slaughtered for how he looked during that in-season tournament game.
Right. So, but I learned to respect it a little bit more as it played out. Now, let's see if they have the same type of approach this year, if anything changes. If they change, the courts are going to be the same, but are they going to have different designs where they're not so we need your shady rays to watch a basketball game? But overall,
we got plenty of them here.
We have plenty of them, and you got some discount, of course, codes to help you out if you need them for the courts. But I did like it as it eventually went through the whole thing. Indiana played well. Los Angeles, it didn't matter for them because they just – that was their peak right there at that point. But it was okay. It was okay. A little bit. It was more competitive than I expected it to be. So we'll see what it does. And we'll see. I mean, heck, we're going to watch it. We want to see if the Sixers take it seriously and take it seriously enough to get there, get some extra money for those younger players that don't make that much money, and see if that can then catapult them into even more stronger play as they continue to go along.
That was what was cool, I think, for a team like Indiana, where it was a lot of younger guys on that team that bunch of them were not making tons of money. They were clearly invested in. They bought in from the very beginning. Like, we're going to go hard and try to advance as far as we can in this tournament. While some teams are just like, well, we don't know the tiebreakers. Like there were coaches and players getting mad about score padding at the end of games when that was a tiebreaker. And so that became a big point of conversation, point of argument. I would say, as the only soccer guy on the show who follows these tournaments overseas, that they have the mid-season stuff that's ongoing alongside the regular season, I don't think it's ever going to take on like a real life. So the best way I could describe it to you is in English Premier League, they have two different cups next to the season in the country. And if you just win one of those, nobody cares. It's one of those that like you make the final and people get very excited for the final. And then if you lose it, it's like, okay, we lost. If you win it, it only actually gains significance if you also won something else. So if you won the English Premier League, if you won Champions League, because then it's like we won the double, we won the treble, and that becomes part of the story of the season. If you only win that, it's just like you won this rinky-dink like mid-season tournament, and I think that's generally how it will probably go in the NBA as well. I do think it will gain. The league really just cares about they want to make more money, which is really what's all that's going to come out of this. Is there'll be more national TV games, more revenue streams, more ads, whatever. That's fine. Like if that helps make the overall product better in some meaningful way for fans, then great. But I don't think there are very few people, maybe some of those sickos are in here today, who are going to be like, man, I need them to win the Emirates NBA Cup, or the season has no meaning. I don't think that'll ever be the case.
Who won? It was the Lakers won it last year, right?
Yes.
Nobody gives a shit. Nobody gives a shit.
Right. Now, if the Lakers had done that and they won the title, then it becomes like, oh, LeBron's the first ever to win. And LeBron probably did look at it as, I was the first guy to ever win the NBA Cup. And he's probably thinking of it in that way.
In the locker room. They were going after it.
Right. You're going to celebrate it. It's still an achievement. I'm not saying that, like, I'm glad that they took it seriously. I would like every game to be taken seriously as it can be, even if it's the regular season. I'm just being realistic about, like, and the other thing with the cups in England or Spain or Italy or wherever, most of those, the domestic ones, those are the games that you see the academy kids, the kids who are like 17, 18. They're given the starters, the first team, a rest so that they can play in the real games. So that's the other thing that I think kind of gets lost in trying to bring this concept from overseas into the NBA.
Yeah, and then they also wore the City Edition uniforms for those, didn't they?
I wish I remembered that.
I think so. I mean, the colors
it would
all
make
blend
sense
because the floor was the color and the uniforms were navy.
That was going to be my recommendation. Like, rather than changing the court, which actually changes how well you can see the game being played, maybe just have like a in-season tournament jersey for each team. That might be too much work, but I think it would be, if they want.
No, it's not, because that's more money for Nike.
Well,
and the NBA.
That's what I was going to say. If their goal is to make money off the in-season tournament, a jersey specifically for it, especially for the team who wins, would probably sell.
Yeah, it probably would.
And it won't distract me as much as those godforsaken courts that they.
And even if they change the courts a little bit, change the court where it's not navy blue and red.
Yes.
Instead, have some navy blue and red.
Here's
in the floor,
easiest sales pitch, since I know we've been on this jersey concept anyway. The NBA Cup is strictly throwback jerseys. Every team wears a throwback jersey. The Sixers wear their black Iverson era jerseys. You do the court as it was back then. You're done. Concept over.
Concept done.
No work for Nike. You don't even have to design anything. You just slap the check mark on it and you're all finished.
Put the swoosh on there and get it done. We have more conversation we have to have about some leaks there about the schedule. We'll get to that. We'll get to Quincy Pondexter and his importance of hanging his jersey in the rafters after they win the in-season tournament. And also Ron, our good friend Aaron, says he has an NBA Cup in his cabinet. We'll talk about that more when we get back here.
Where'd you get that from? A fast food restaurant?
PHLY Sixers podcast. I have one in my cabinet too. An NBA
we have
Cup.
A couple of friends we need to tell you about. First up, Ace Hardware. If you've got a leaky pipe at Ace Hardware Home Services, they're around the block with everything you need to fix it, including, and this is very key for people like me, who have not a handyman bone in their body, including the person to do the fixing. If you've got an air conditioning issue, they've got a person for that. Got a faucet you said you would fix last fall. I love putting off home projects. They have that person too, because now they're not just the helpful hardware folks. They're also the helpful home service and repair folks. From plumbing to heating and cooling, they've got the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long. Ace Hardware Home Services, they're bringing helpful home, the helpful you love from the store to your front door. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at www.acehardwarehomeservices.com to get you started on your next project. Also want to make sure we tell you about Rugged Road. I'm actually going on a camping trip here in a couple of days, next week.
Nature boy Ric Flair down there.
You got to put some of those beverages that Kyle was talking about in there.
We'll put some of those chill beverages in there as well, and I will test out their cooler and report back. Rugged Road is dedicated to creating innovative and durable outdoor gear for adventurers who demand the best. Their products are designed with the highest quality materials and craftsmanship, ensuring they perform in the toughest conditions. Whether you're on land or water, Rugged Road gear is built to accompany you on every adventure. One of the most unique features of Rugged Road coolers is their ability to always float upright. Never lose a drink. Again, that's one that I will definitely be testing as I throw that thing into a 200
throw the cooler in the water.
I will test that out.
All right.
They have a lightweight design. Unlike other heavy-duty coolers, Rugged Road coolers are incredibly light, making them easy to transport on any trip without compromising on performance. Crafted to handle the toughest environments, their coolers are built to last, ensuring they can keep up with any adventures. The coolers are guaranteed to keep their contents cool for up to 7 days, but oftentimes much longer than that. So gear up for your next adventure with Rugged Road coolers, reliable, durable, and built to be used. Rugged Road is your ultimate outdoor companion. Head to ruggedroadoutdoors.com and use code PHLY for 10% off.
I need one of those Rugged Road coolers.
I'm legitimately going to put
nice.
this to the test.
Yeah, Derek is going to take it out and
test it
take
out.
it for a spin so he can be our guinea pig, and then we'll see how many I need to buy for myself and my friends and family.
No, coolers are actually something I get good use out of, and I am pretty demanding on that, so we will see.
All right. Just don't let it float away. You gotta go retrieve it and bring it back.
You can't lose your chill. I'm not letting that float away.
No, make sure you take your Shady Rays also. All right. As we talk about the schedule, Kyle mentioned a couple of them already. Season opener. Was it Shams reported it? I think it was Shams reported it. That
opener against Milwaukee, October 23rd.
So home against Giannis to start off the season, and with head coach Doc Rivers. Maybe we'll talk about him a little bit later on. But
we will talk about him later on.
Milwaukee opened up the season at home.
Yeah, it feels like I don't want to say what I'm going to say because that would give away the next two games. There are some pretty clear teams that the NBA is interested in.
The Knicks, the Sixers, the Lakers, the Warriors, the Celtics.
Yeah, but that they're interested in matching the Sixers up against. They tend to put them in the high-profile games. Milwaukee has always been one since Embiid and Giannis burst onto the scene as MVP candidates. I know they played on Christmas Day a couple of years back.
Yep.
So this being the opener isn't necessarily all that surprising, but it is a great matchup, and it's a great stylistic matchup. It's a great matchup because of Embiid and Giannis, and it's just a great matchup because both teams do go about their business in very different ways. It'll be an interesting opening test, and that is in Philadelphia, so it'll be great too.
It's an interesting matchup too because the Bucks just started flailing and going in a different direction last season. Doc Rivers comes in the middle of the year. All right, he gets his full training camp. You get Giannis back healthy. Chris Middleton was injured. There are all kinds of things swirling around Damian Lillard and how that thing started to go in another direction. So not just the Sixers and their new lineup and their new team, but also with the Bucks and what they might look like. Because when we start talking about Boston and New York and Philadelphia, Milwaukee's kind of like in that next tier of talking about them and leaving them out when we've always talked about Milwaukee in the top three with Boston and Philadelphia. So they kind of have something to prove to that people are leaving them out of the discussion and putting them there with Cleveland and Orlando instead of with Boston and Philadelphia. So Milwaukee has a lot to prove.
Kyle, where do you think they should be ranked? I feel like you have strong opinions on the Milwaukee Bucks. Yep.
Well, here's the thing with them. Their future hinges on whether Dame Lillard's previous season was an anomaly and a result of some physical issues that he can bounce back from, or this is just the new normal, right? Like, it was a bad down season for Dame. He shot 42% from the field, 35% from three, and all the stuff about him being like, well, he's the perfect fit for Giannis. You're going to run everything through Dame in crunch time. They're going to just pick and roll teams to death. I don't think that really came to fruition. And I think more importantly, in assembling the Dame Giannis duo as the core of your team, they broke up what was previously the identity of the team, which was, I shouldn't say that. It wasn't that it was just a defensive identity. It's that they had an elite two-way reputation and stats and production for 4 or 5 years in a row, probably. Like, they were a regular season juggernaut. Now, a lot of that didn't translate to the playoffs, sometimes due to injuries. Sometimes there were coaching issues, what have you. I just think that I don't have a lot of trust in Dame aging gracefully here over the next few years. There was another year, a few years back, where I felt kind of the same way, and then he bounced back in 22, 23, had a very good season.
Would he have like a hip, not a hip, it was ab thing, right?
Yeah, some kind of abdominal issue. And so really what you feel about the Bucks is a litmus test, or what you feel about Dame Lillard is a litmus test for what you feel about the Bucks. Because if you think he's going to be back to, I'd say, like the standard Dame Lillard season, they will be in the inner circle of NBA contenders, because I think the offense can be so good that you can get by some of the defensive stuff. But one of the big consequences of trading for Dame, beyond just the defensive stuff is that your depth now is not very good. It's gotten older. Chris Middleton had some moments at the end of last season, so he looks like he's. I thought he was cooked, and he had some great moments in the playoffs and late in the regular season. So that's if you're a Bucks fan or a Bucks believer in the media, wherever, those are great signs for them. I'm just very skeptical of that trio. And so I would put them outside of that top group that I do think the Sixers are in. I think the Sixers are probably on the lower end of it, but I do think the Sixers are above the Bucks if we're trying to assign tiers to where teams are.
Boston has their own tier because they won the championship, but next up, it's been New York and Philadelphia back and forth of how people feel of where they are. I personally had New York first, and then they lost Hartenstein. And once they did that, Paul George, Caleb Martin, all the stuff that then followed for the Sixers, I put them right in front of New York now as far as the second best team in the Eastern Conference on paper for right now, with New York right there behind it, because the Hartenstein piece was real. We saw it. We saw it ourselves of how important he was for them. And now they have Mitchell Robinson, Precious Achiuwa, Jericho Sims as their front court, as their bigs. And now look, Julius Randle is also coming back. And if he can stay healthy, that's a difference maker. Mm-hmm. But right now, I think I would just put the Sixers right there. So Milwaukee is in that Cleveland, Orlando tier right there in that conversation because of the question marks that come with it. But the point of it, of us even starting this whole thing, was because opening night, nationally televised game, they're going to try to prove something against the Sixers in that opening matchup here in Philadelphia. Then you mentioned the other game, which was November 6th against the Los Angeles Clippers. Paul George returns to Los Angeles, and Chris Haynes is reporting that one from Turner, and that's an early West Coast trip than we are normally accustomed to seeing.
So I feel like they normally have some sort of early West Coast trip, but it's almost never in LA. Yeah. I think if they do an early one, it tends to be Phoenix. They do maybe not Phoenix, maybe Phoenix is in there, but I think it's like they'll do Minnesota, Denver, Utah, Portland. It's some mix of those four teams, and maybe you sprinkle Phoenix in there.
Furkan Korkmaz's incredible shot from a couple years ago.
So that's the one that sticks out in my mind. LA is normally later in the season, in part because you can put that around Christmas, and that's a game that has a decent amount of interest.
And that was always the Disney trip,
the Disney on Ice
thing that would send them out west.
In some recent years, we've seen them go in like late February, early March, a post-deadline trip. They'll hit the Clippers, the Lakers, the Warriors, the Kings, and Phoenix, right. And that's part of that big. And then there's the separate. You hit all the Texas teams at one point too. So yeah, it's interesting that they got it in so early. I had a couple people when I tweeted out some thoughts about it earlier. I had a few people that replied to me. It was interesting. They said, I wonder if that means that the Denver game is going to be early. And it would make some sense if the NBA has looked at how many times Joel has missed it in recent years and said, you know what? We're putting Jokic and Embiid on the schedule as early as possible. You will be healthy more than likely. Let's get down to business. And maybe that's the mentality. But we don't know the rest of that trip yet. I'm just trying to piece together, based on what we know so far, there could be some repercussions that changes what the rest of the season looks like.
So one thing that was buried in the press release on the Cup games, the full schedule comes out on Thursday.
It is this Thursday.
There we go.
We were thinking early next week, but it's this Thursday.
I figured either end of this week or mid next week. So there we go.
Yeah.
We have our answer. We have a full. That's my solemn promise to you, whether it is on this show or I do it in writing. I will predict the winner and loser of every Sixers game this season. That's probably more of a written
football
thing because I can have some fun with it.
Football style.
I love doing that, and the way I always do it is you add on the just like ridiculous Sixers stuff. Like, yeah, they're definitely losing this one to Charlotte just because they showed up and didn't care, and you have to think about it in that way. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we'll see. So Thursday.
Perfect time for us to tell you about the Die Hard program that we have at allphly.com. Should Kyle decide to do the writing instead of having it on the show, you have to be a Die Hard member to read the story. Allphly.com. Podcasts, live shows, every team, every day. Training camp underway for the Eagles. So the guys are busy. They're in Foxborough right now for the joint practice between the Patriots and the Eagles. Bo and Zach will have your coverage there. allphly.com for the reading of the stories that are written from those guys. Les Bowen as well. Baseball, they're back home now, starting tonight against Washington. You need, or is it Miami tonight? I think it's Miami tonight. They play against Miami and the
baseball,
Nationals.
Baby. Love the baseball.
Over these next six games, and they will be home. So you'll have Jim Salisbury writing about that, and you'll get some things, of course, from Jamie and Renee and Tyler on the All PHLY Phillies show, and the written content from Charlie for the Flyers as well. And don't forget Joel Embiid's Capturing of Gold. Kyle did write about that, allphly.com. So that's what you need to do. Sign up, tell a friend, and tell another friend, and tell the other friend to do so. Make sure you do so. Getting into the allphly.com conversation by telling everybody you get the dope merchandise. You get 20% off all events. And we have an event coming up as well for the Phillies where they will
Top
be
Tomato, August 29th.
Against the stinking Braves back at home. $1 beers, $1 hot dogs all night. Phillies ticket giveaways, merchandise, and memorabilia as well. You must RSVP, though, for the free giveaways at allphly.com/events to check it out and to RSVP. So make sure you go do that. And then you'll get the written content from Kyle and Derek about the Sixers, especially with the wins and losses.
You can hang out and chat, and we do all kinds of stuff.
And I was
going to
say, speaking of our community that we love with the Discord, Michael B. just sent us a very generous €50 super chat. Says nothing to say except love the work of you guys and the community.
Thank you, Mike.
Love that, Michael. And obviously, part of the reason we have the roll call, part of the reason that we try to emphasize the Discord is because we do really value the people who show up for us every day, the people who just want to, sit around 365 days a year and talk, whether it's with us about the Sixers, talk about the Eagles, Phillies, the Flyers people in that Discord server are crazy.
Wow, yes.
But our people on YouTube, our people on Discord, wherever you guys find us, we do really appreciate and love the community. So thank you to Michael for highlighting that.
And for us during the season, if we have some events coming up, maybe working on some things there, become a diehard member. You find out about those before everyone else and have an opportunity for us to hang out together, maybe at a basketball game. One more game, Derek, that was kind of been leaked out before the Thursday release. As you pointed out, you did mention how they want to put certain teams against one another, the Christmas Day game. We kind of heard a little bit about it. Maybe they had a home game this time around, not on the road like they were last year against Miami, but it looks like it's the Boston Celtics in Boston on Christmas Day. Yeah.
And again, this is a matchup that you almost can't avoid. Not only is it two of the top teams in the Eastern Conference, two of the inner circle title contenders, but two historic franchises, and it's
the rivalry is back, baby.
Yeah, well, it's
never left.
It's been a little one-sided, but it is certainly a rivalry historically. And look, the Sixers have had moments where they have. I think if you go back over during this run between these two franchises, it's pretty much close to 500 in the regular season. So it's not like you necessarily prove anything with a Christmas Day game, but a win would certainly help, at least help us feel good in the moment. I'm really interested to see how these two teams match up. I think the Sixers with Paul George have a better chance of matching up against Boston. I think specifically with three tall wings, they now are much better equipped to match up with Boston. And that will be, we don't know if that will be the first time you get a chance. Probably not. They'll probably have one game in November or earlier in December, but that will be a chance relatively early and towards the middle of the season to see how you measure up.
Yeah. All right. Well, see Boston on Christmas Day, and New York always gets the noon game, so you can always pencil that one in.
Will that be another just me and Devon in the studio hanging out night? Remember that?
I think we got to pick out.
Derek took his full day off. Devon and I with no Joel Embiid, no Jimmy Butler. We're sitting in the studio on Christmas, like, man. And I will say, we still had, to speak of the community again, we still had a bunch of people on Christmas evening
with
hanging out with the Eagles playing, hanging out with us after that miserable game.
How was that game close again? Because Maxey struggled.
I don't remember. It was probably like a Pat Beverly game.
They came back.
Yeah,
it might have been Pat Beverly.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, Marcus Morris probably went off in that game. Marcus Morris moment of the night on Christmas night because Tyrese struggled. And that was after him having one of those big
I'm pulling up the box
individual performances. And
I'm pretty sure it was a pretty big
Oubre had 25. Tobias had 27. So
that's that stretch with Tobias was good.
Mo Bamba had 18 off the bench. She went 3 of 3 from 3.
We got to get Mo.
All I remembered was you and I sitting during the game like, what the hell did I do wrong with my life that we're sitting here on? And then we had some fun. We had some fun with the community.
And luckily my kids are older. So
yeah,
by 8 o'clock, they're like, all right, we're good. So I
most
can come
people
into work.
on Christmas are done by then. It was an evening game. So
if they were younger, no shot. But yeah, they're older, so it's all good. All right, should we talk about the guy who made all of this possible?
The savior of the offseason.
Mike Muscala already has his jersey in the rafters for a lot of you Sixer fans. It's not physically in the rafters, but it should be in the rafters. There's one more we have to add to it, and that is courtesy of some news out there from Quincy Pondexter.
Who would have
Who is
thought?
Quincy Pondexter? You don't remember Quincy Pondexter played for University of Washington? And one of those guys that is a solid wing player came to the league, had a nice stretch there before an injury took him down. And with it, that might be how he got the relationship with Joel Embiid. So would you care to share how this all came about? Quincy Pondexter, Paul George, Joel Embiid.
Well, so first, and Quincy Pondexter did go through this. He was on the This League podcast with Mark Stein and Chris Haynes. Big Chris Haynes presence today on the show. So shout out to Chris Haynes. Quincy explained on the show that the reason he became friends with Joel Embiid was they had the same agent and he had broken his navicular bone. And the agents were like, hey, can you kind of talk Joel through this process? Like, what was it like to rehab? What was it like to try to get back on the floor after this injury? And so Quincy Pondexter essentially explained, like, he became Joel's big brother and that they are now really good friends. And frankly, I knew they had a relationship. I didn't realize they were this close that, like, Joel and him are still talking in April, May, and June of this year. I knew that they had a relationship previously. I actually was second guessing myself, like, did he play on the Sixers at some point?
Yeah.
I mind melded myself into. He could have just been here for, like I said, a quick like assistant coach role or something. Like, I don't.
Role,
So I tricked myself into believing he was on the team, but I went back and
Joel
I
and his
remember
relationships that we don't know about, man.
Joel
like Paul
keeps
George.
it close to the vest,
yes,
right?
Does. Yes,
so
he does.
Quincy is also a Fresno guy, I believe, right? And so knows Paul George based on coming up through the same place, being from the same area. And essentially he said, as the smoke was out there, that, hey, Paul George is probably not coming to Philadelphia. We talked about it on the show. We were like, hey, maybe Brandon Ingram's the most likely scenario. Maybe he gets signed, or not sign and trade. Maybe he opts in and gets traded to Golden State. Quincy Pondexter was either talking to PG or PG's people. We'll call them PG's camp, whoever's around him. And they were like, no, this is still a real possibility. And apparently Quincy Pondexter got on the phone with Joel and was like, bro, it's not over. Keep recruiting. Keep going. And so Quincy Pondexter, being in Joel's ear and feeding him intel from the George side of things, basically saved the future of the franchise. And so I'm not sure if we need to build him a statue or if this is just like you hang a banner in the rafters that just has a cell phone on it with Quincy Pondexter's name.
Thank you,
but
Ryan Reynolds.
If they somehow win a title in the next few years, we will look back on this as like, this was his Mike Muscala moment.
Put him on the float,
He
man.
just did it because he was friends with, just like Mike Muscala was like, I'm in the bubble. I'm just trying to hoop and win games for the love of the game.
Yep.
Quincy Pondexter's like, that's my boy Joel. I want to help him out as much as possible. I'm going to give him a phone call. And so Joel kept recruiting. He kept staying in PG's ear. One thing led to another. And now Paul George is a member of the Philadelphia 76ers. So what a great story. I never thought we'd be talking about Quincy Pondexter on August 13th relating to the biggest Sixers free agent signing in maybe ever, but certainly in recent memory.
So if
Good times.
If AI gets a small statue, how big does Quincy's?
See, Ron, Quincy gets a Camden statue, man.
Okay.
Yeah, Aaron, you're right on it. But he gets.
Can we do like Quincy Pondexter bobblehead night and give out like with the two cell phones? Like I have the Mint mobile phone.
Who's the guy with the meme? Who's the guy with the glasses that stands there like this with the phone in his hands?
I know who you're talking
that
about.
guy.
But I think he's calling the cops in that picture, so we don't want that.
Quincy's not doing that one. He's calling Calling on Joel and Paul George.
Speaking of Muscala, now that he's retired, can we get him to ring the bell?
Oh, he absolutely is going to ring the bell.
He's got to ring the bell.
Going to ring the bell.
We should get him on the show. Is what we need to do.
Yeah,
might have to ask him about, unfortunately, Muskie Bobber and that unfortunate series of dad tweets that were happening at that time. But yeah, I mean,
I've had some really shitty parents over the years.
Well, thankfully, Quincy Pondexter, another hero in Philadelphia lore,
who knew?
Potentially.
But that's the beauty of sport. That's the beauty of basketball. You never know where these relationships are developed. Sure, they see each other in the AAU circuit. They play against them in all these camps and play on the same teams in some way where the relationship somehow comes back to when you get to the league or when you go to college and you're making a decision of what school should I go to, and player X is cool with player Y and they decide, you know what, let's go link up at St. Joe's. Let's put together a super team at St. Joe's, and it works out the way that it does. And here, we didn't know Joel was so close to Paul George because of their all-star visits and conversations that they had to forge their relationship. And now you have one here with Quincy Pondexter, cool with both of them, that were able to kind of bridge that gap and make sure that they were good.
And then when you're building that super team at St. Joe's, who knows? You may see PJ Tucker just walk onto the floor, go stand in the corner for a little bit, and he'll join you.
You never know. You
Always
never know.
Philly.
There was one other thing not related to this, but also from Quincy Pondexter. I'll throw at you guys before we get out of here. He talked about Joel playing for Team USA and said, "It's been a rough summer of defending him," was the direct quote. But he also said Joel wasn't healthy, wasn't in shape, wanted to play and put his love of the game on the line for our country, and said he only touched a basketball maybe a few days before he got out to Vegas for training camp, maybe 4 days. I would say, given if we're to take all his word at face value, certainly, yeah, I would agree. It looked like he didn't touch a basketball until right before they were out in Vegas, right? Yeah. But would certainly lend some credence to the people who are like, hey, maybe he shouldn't be there if he's not healthy enough to go, and give himself a little more time to recover. But hopefully now Joel is in a better place with his health and conditioning. And once again, he wanted to be out there and play. He did not want to.
That's why you can't fault him. And then you saw him rounding the form and what he has done the last 2 weeks and helping them capture that gold medal. I will say, though, it's not like he was playing 30 per night. Like, I think this was a way to ease back into. He's playing like 15 to 19 a night. Michael, one more super chat. Not quite sure what Malcolm Poindexter has to do with it. I want a darn title while I am alive. Is that too much to ask? It's not too much to ask.
That's what everybody wants, Michael. I think, and frankly, I know that's what Joel wants. I know that's what Quincy wanted for Joel, for his friend. Or he wouldn't have been on the phone. He would have just left it alone and said, the Sixers can figure it out. But that was the reason he's relevant, is because he was helping out his friend, Joel Embiid, to recruit somebody to make the team better. So it's all just, it's a small thing, but it's a part of this big chase that they want.
And we do have to shout out Lawrence Frank. Maybe he should get a little statue too, because even after all that, he had to make the decision not to go that fourth year. So thank you, Mr. Frank. But yeah, there's a lot of hands in that recruitment.
We'll see what ultimately happens with this basketball team. A lot more to talk about this week, but before we say goodbye, it's time for our roll call.
Thank you, as always, to everybody for coming through.
Love the graphic.
Thank you to my girl Winona and her wonderful mother. Pulled up for the show once again today. Thank you to you both.
Hey, Mom.
Thank you to Valhost. Thank you to Dave Dewar. Thank you to Michael B. for a couple of generous super chats today.
Very generous.
Although he did say Malcolm Poindexter. A little mean, but
that's why I said hi.
Well, let it slide. Just gave us €100.
Thank you very much to Michael for his contributions to the show today and for keeping it lively in the chat. Thank you to X-Man, Mr. Sandman.
What up, X?
Thank you to Darkness.
Whoa.
Thank you to Eugene Ross, Martian Lynch, Money Mar.
What up, Martian?
Hey, Aaron.
Aaron, what up?
Phi Chi, I Gavini, Mr. Sandman.
Sandman, bring me a dream.
NBAJ at UK Swish.
Swish.
Is that a UK like overseas, or is that UK like University of Kentucky?
Good question. Kansas, one of the two.
Who knows? But thank you to UK Swish either way. Thank you to Randy Rhubarb.
What up, Randy?
Thank you Two, as I keep scrolling and some of you guys love to just talk to just a few of you. I think Jess with the purple heart.
Hey, Jess.
In here today. If you guys could hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get the notifications. Each and every time we go live, hit the thumbs up, and we'll be back tomorrow
Thank
at
you,
3
Bree.
o'clock. Thank you to Bree.
We all silly like the mayor.